So I think we now have to then call the Director of National Parks, and thanks for being available. Senator Nash,
thank
5
you.
minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Given I've only got 5 minutes, if we can keep it all brief, that would be great. So I'm just referring to the $9 million that was used for the purchase, well, the majority purchase of the R.M. Williams holding of Henbury Station. Now, am I correct in that that $9 million was for the National Reserve system to be put in place?
Peter Cochran, Director of National Parks. Yes, that funding was on exactly the same basis as every other National Reserve System purchase, and that is a 2-for-1 Commonwealth to the proponent ratio. The purchase price was about $13 million. The 9.1 or 9.2 was 2/3 of that purchase price.
Yep. Okay. So what is the, I suppose, what is the process for accountability for the effective use of taxpayers' money for that $9 million that's gone to Henbury Station? What's the criteria? What's the accountability?
A little bit of history might help. The property was
really quickly for me, if you don't mind.
Property was on the market in 2008. In 2009, the Northern Territory Government came to us with a proposal to purchase that property to include as a conservation reserve. In the end, they couldn't find their 1/3 funding. R.M. Williams learnt of the property through the Northern Territory Government and then put a proposal, and they put up the proposal where they funded the 1/3.
The remainder, yep, got all that.
For the acquisition and then management of that property as a conservation reserve.
Right. So now the reporting, and I don't take reporting at face value at any stretch of the imagination, but are you aware of reporting that they are planning to go back and graze cattle again on the property?
I'm aware that a member of R.M. Williams Agricultural Holdings had made that statement. It is not consistent at all with the funding deed,
okay,
for which under which that money was provided.
So the funding deed would exclude any cattle, and that would make perfect sense, seeing it was to go back to the National Reserve System. What would happen if the intent of the Henbury, people running Henbury, wanted to go back to putting cattle on in terms of the money?
Well, if they did it, they would be in breach of the contract that they have with us.
And what would happen then? Would they have to refund the $9 million?
Potentially, but my understanding is that whilst that comment was attributed to one of the members of that company, that is not the company position.
Okay, so we'll assume that that's not the company position, that's not going to happen, so it's still just the National Reserve System. So what is the criteria you put in place year on year for them to meet the funding deed?
So they need to prepare a management plan. Before that, they need to prepare an interim management plan. They have done that. The most recent milestone, which they have met, was on the 23rd of December, where they provided a progress report to us. There is a project steering committee for the project, which meets regularly, and there's a Commonwealth officer on that steering committee.
Okay. Oh, Chair, I won't be long, I promise. So that management plan, is any or all of that publicly available?
Well, the management plan is still being developed. The interim management guidelines.
Hang on. When did they get the money?
When did they get the money?
Yeah.
2011, I think.
And the management plan's only still being done?
Still being... yeah, well,
Shush, I've only got 30 seconds, be quiet.
Yeah, the interim management guidelines have been prepared.
So you've given them $9 million so they can appropriately manage this as a National Reserve System, and we still don't have a management plan?
Well, the management plan takes some time to develop. It took...
Clearly.
Well, they weren't the owners until the...
Holy rock, and I might have to put someone on notice, Chair. I'm very conscious of your indulgence. Yep. So when do you expect that management plan to be finished?
Well, that's a good question that I don't have an answer for.
Holy smokes. Why would you not wait until they'd given you the management plan to see what they were going to do with the property? Hang on, no, just let me finish the question, my train of thought, otherwise I'll forget. Why would you not wait until they had given you a completed management plan to show you how that was going to fit with the requirements under the National Reserve System before you gave them $9 million of taxpayers' money?
The broad parameters for how the property is to be managed is actually set out in the funding agreement with the company. So part of the funding agreement with the company was that it be destocked. The former owner destocked it over a period whilst the transfer of ownership was happening. So there was a series of specifications in the funding deed about what needed to be done. So we reached agreement on the broad parameters of what needed to
So
be
you
done.
gave them $9 million on broad parameters.
Well, this is actually consistent with how we do the National Reserve System acquisitions.
I'm not sure that's
generally.
a good thing.
Until someone's actually responsible for the property, they can't be developing the management plan.
What if
We
they?
can't
What if they?
specify.
Yeah, no, I get
Okay,
that. I get
sir,
that.
Nash, I'm going to wind you up.
Last two last questions. So what? So
Last
what would you? No, last two, I promise. So what would have happened? What happens if they come to you with a management plan that you don't think is going to be effective, having already given them $9 million?
That's one.
That would go for any property that is purchased with the National Reserve System. We haven't had that problem yet.
Okay, could you take on notice for me, because I don't know what that would go for any. Can you take that on notice for me? And my final
two.
question is that no, that's not fair, Chair. I have more respect for you than that, Chair. And my very last question is, what happens, how long does that funding deed go for, and what happens if the owners of Henbury choose to sell it at any time in the future? Does that $9 million revert to the Commonwealth?
There is a clause in there which says, yes, if they breach the funding deed, they'll need to repay the money to us.
No, does that include selling the property?
Well, they're actually not allowed to sell it without consultation agreement of the Commonwealth.
Could you take that on notice for me and give me a detailed explanation of in what circumstances the R.M. Williams Corporation or whoever has it would be enabled to sell Henbury Station without repaying the $9 million of taxpayers' money to the Commonwealth? Okay.
Well, I don't believe that is the...
No,
they could sell it to a like organisation, and that provision is in all the funding deeds.
that's okay. No, I just want you to take it on notice for me. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.